Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 231 of The Ball is Round. My name is Andy Coronado, and tonight on the show, we react to Messi Mania in Montreal, CF Montreal's loss to Miami, and what's next for CF Montreal, and much more. As always, tonight I'm joined by my partner in crime, Elias Grigoriadis. What's good, my man? How was your weekend? Elias, I practiced your name 20,000 times before the show. I think I got
And
it
you got it
right.
right. Look at you.
Yes.
You're doing so
Yes.
great. Yeah, my weekend was completely uneventful. My Saturday was
Yeah.
nothing at all happened. Nobody came to town and totally super dull.
Just
No.
another December night. Just another December night in Montreal.
Exactly. Absolutely. I don't think you know what day it is, but correct.
Okay, we're starting aggressive. So, yes, it was a big weekend, right? Big weekend. I honestly, I wasn't even at the stadium. I wasn't even at Stade Saputo last night. I had to rewatch the game today. Um, yeah, there was a guy that came that people know. I don't know if you heard him.
Allegedly.
Anyway, yeah, allegedly. But Elias, I was at the Montreal Alouettes game at Stade Percival, and it was. We'll get right into Messi Mania because that's obviously the topic everybody is talking about in social media or whatnot. Lionel Messi came into town to play his second time in Montreal. I don't know
Hmm.
if in the past he's been here for whatever reason, but as far as playing in the MLS, it's his second time. Last year he came as well. Um, so we went to a Montreal Alouettes game to start Percival, and it was crazy, like because I thought I would
Was
be
anybody
away.
watching the CF Montreal game on their phone at the game, or
I was at times. I know I was actually looking, but Elias, beyond that, okay, and this was mind blowing to me. There were kids. I'll say kids because I didn't see any adults, but I saw kids with Inter Miami and Barcelona shirts in the football game, and I was like, "What is happening right now? What
they
is
went to the
going
wrong
on?"
stadium?
I was like, did they book the wrong tickets? Like it just didn't make much sense to me. And honestly, like I was gonna say, like it was just like, are we really that is it really that crazy, Messi Mania? And I get it, okay? And we're gonna get right into it. Just before we get into everything, guys, as always, and hey Robbie, he says, good evening, gentlemen. Hope you are both doing well. We're it's
I've
freaking
been
hot.
better.
It is freaking hot today. But anyways, we've been better. Before we get into the show, just before we get started, just a quick reminder that if you listen to a show and you watch us and like what you see, hear, see, click on the subscribe button to support The Ball is Round. While you're at it, make sure to also subscribe and to follow all of our social media platforms for daily updates on CF Montreal, Roses FC, Canada men's national team, Canada women's national team stuff. All right, let's get right into it. Messi Mania in Montreal. Now, Elias, before we even get into the game, we want to talk a little bit about outside their game. I think both you and I we're not done. We saw everything on social media. We saw everything on TV. Everything's focused on Lionel Messi, Lionel Messi, Lionel Messi,
Yeah.
Lionel Messi. You go to the stadium, and you were at the stadium. I just saw it on TV, but you go to the stadium, and it looks like a Inter Miami stadium. It didn't look like a CF Montreal stadium. This upset a lot of people in social media, and some big
Yeah.
names too. It upset a lot of them saying that it's what is this? Why are there so many? They're chanting Messi's name. They're trying to do the wave when CF Montreal's losing. I think they were down 3-1 at that point, 4-1. Um, what's your take on that? I mean, did you feel as say like disgusted as some of these maybe people have talked about feeling seeing
I
all
don't
that,
think
hearing all that?
disgusted is the right word. Not even disappointed, because disappointed implies like some level of surprise, at least a little bit. I wasn't like, you could have admitted to have been surprised a bit last year. You wouldn't know how Montreal as a city and as a sporting culture would react, because usually, right, whenever a big star comes to town in the NHL,
Mhm.
people didn't really show up for Sidney Crosby or Connor McDavid, and it was 50-50 Penguins or Oilers jerseys, right? Sidney Crosby and Connor McDavid were booed out of the building because this is Montreal. So this is not the same. Obviously, there's a certain novelty to it. Messi has never played here. Connor McDavid and Sidney Crosby play here multiple times. In Crosby's case, multiple times a year. So it's not the same thing. But when you have someone of that caliber, of world class caliber, come to your city, usually Montreal reacts appropriately. Um, but yeah, I am disappointed, obviously, right? Because look, people have kind of regurgitated the same thing on social media. People that don't come to the stadium, people that don't follow CF Montreal, people that don't do any of that, all of a sudden are helping price out fans that go there as often as possible, and essentially turn it into an away game. Right now, Javier Mascherano kind of talked about it after the game. No, exactly. And Rob said Montreal's not unique in MLS. This happens everywhere Miami plays, and
100%.
honestly, the only time I could think of it actually not happening was this year when Miami went to Vancouver. And apparently the Vancouver fans showed up.
Yeah.
Again, Vancouver is in a much better situation. And you know what? I think they won that game. So I mean, it's
Aren't they getting sold? They're up for sale, no?
I didn't hear you.
They're up for sale, no? The Vancouver Whitecaps.
That doesn't change anything. It's the fans that show up, right?
Right.
And so, I mean, honestly, yeah, I was a little upset because of the way it was, but you're not allowed to say you were surprised. You're not like, oh, what is this? Oh, this is on. No, I mean, you knew this was happening. You're allowed to be upset. You're allowed to kind of ask why this happened, but you are not allowed to be like, nobody could have seen this happen. No, you have very much like you've seen every single game. Why would Montreal, in the current state of the club, be any different?
Yep.
So again, until you give people a reason other than Lionel Messi to show up to the stadium in the way that they did, this is going to be the statement. And honestly, I kind of want to bring this up because this was the fullest the stadium had been all year, right? There was even the Canadian Classic, even Montreal Toronto, it was there were still some empty seats here and there. This atmosphere, I'm talking about like in the moments, and yeah, when Messi scored, when Montreal scored, it was loud. But in the actual, like over the course of 90 whole minutes, this was the deadest game of the year.
Mm.
Because a lot of the people showing up did not show up for even one specific team. Like if it was like if everyone in there was an Inter Miami fan, then like at least there would have been some kind of atmosphere, whatever. 100% shout out to the supporters groups on both ends because they were basically fighting against like an army of at least 10,000 Messi fans, but and they were loud all game, so they deserve their credit. But as a whole, in the whole stadium over 90 minutes, it was by far the worst atmosphere of the game because it was just quiet. Whenever Messi wasn't doing anything, you heard the supporters groups, you heard the odd like Messi chant, whatever, yeah. But besides that, there was nothing. It was really dead, and so it also kind of goes to show you, right? Like this is not the kind of crowd that you can rely on to show up consistently. And when you don't deliver a product consistently, that makes them want to come back and go like, oh yeah, I came here for Messi, but like, yeah, maybe I'll come here a couple times a year. No, that won't happen. That won't happen in any significant way, at least. So, you know, disappointed but not surprised is the bottom up. I'm not even disappointed. I'm just kind of annoyed.
Yeah, that's the best word because
I rolled my eyes a lot last night.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think the only time we've ever rolled our eyes at games like these are obviously the Toronto game because Montreal's losing 6-1, so it gives you plenty of reasons to roll your eyes. But when I first started following this team, Elias, I when I moved to Montreal, I learned there was a soccer game, and beyond that, beyond learning that there was a soccer team, I saw how much the fans loved the team. They loved the Montreal Impact. They loved their city. They love everything about it. And you would see the fans really show up. And these are fans that if you study now the team and all that, you realize that they've been doing it for a long time. They've been fans, from the and it, like back 10 years ago, 15 years ago, they've been following this team. But the reality of it, and as Robbie mentioned, right, it's not something that's unique to the Montreal Impact, CF Montreal. It's all over the MLS. I mean, it is Messi Mania, and Messi's gonna bring money. Messi's gonna bring eyes. Messi's gonna bring people into seats, and that's exactly what they did last night. As you mentioned, it's annoying for fans that show up on days that they win or lose and it's rainy, it's cold, and you're out there really rooting. And then all of a sudden these people decide to pay whatever money they decide to pay. Like they decide to 300, 400, 40 bucks, whatever you decide to pay. They show up and they're like, I'm here just for the good times, and then I'm out for the rest of the season. To me, if there's anything good that comes out of this, is that after this, there's no more Lionel Messi game. Unless we make it to the playoffs, Maybe, I don't know.
I don't
But
think he's re-signing, so this is probably the
oh, you're
last
calling it
game
like
of him.
that?
Oh, I'd be surprised if he re-signed. Let's be honest here. He probably wants
Oh,
something a
there's
bit more, a bit more taxing to kind of prepare for the World Cup. And this, you watch the game, man. Half the time he's on cruise control. Like, let's be honest here.
but he did that in PSG as well. I mean, anyways, like
Yeah,
that.
but PSG are on cruise control against world-class opposition. Here, you're on cruise control against a league that's still in development. That's still,
Yeah,
on the come up. So
I
it's an
when I
entirely different level of work rate that
yeah
Messi puts in.
when I spoke to people that cover Miami, Inter Miami, when we brought them over for Op Watch, Franco Panizo, and all that, they say that it's almost a done deal that he's resigning. 100%, he's staying.
I
That's
mean,
what they said.
that would make sense because he wouldn't uproot his entire family and move to across the world if you didn't have long-term plans here. He's obviously enjoying his life here, but like purely from a the like footballing standpoint, if he did kind of look at consider his options, I wouldn't be surprised. Again, I'm saying this with absolutely no inside information,
Yeah,
but and I'm completely spitballing, and everything I say must be taken with a grain of salt. But I wouldn't be surprised if he considered, just because again, when you're playing with Inter Miami and like, yeah, you have Busquets there, you have Alba there, and you have some other players that had some really nice games. Like Allende had a great game last night. That's one thing, but the Argentinian national team is an entirely different level of football,
yeah.
and it's almost like you kind of almost have to relearn that level when you play MLS game in and game out.
Whatever Lionel Messi decides to do, I feel like it's going to catch everybody by surprise because just his decision to move to Inter Miami in the first place, I feel like people forget about that, is that it came as a complete surprise to everyone, including PSG and Inter Miami and MLS. He just decided on a whim, like, you know what? Nah, I'm out of here. I'm going to Miami. Like, and it could happen the same thing where he says, you know what? So close to signing, we're at the finish line, and all of a sudden he's like, you know what? I'm out. I want to go here. So, I mean, he's done it all. He's got his rights, but God knows what's going on, between the 2 years. Like he could be thinking a billion different things, right? But back to Messi Mania here in Montreal. So do you think, in your opinion, Elias, that because I think I mentioned it a little bit earlier, Lionel Messi in itself, yes, he plays for Inter Miami and he has Luis Suarez, Jordi Alba, but he is a business. He's a business, somebody that brings business to your stadium, be it for the seats, or be it for the food, or be it for whatever. Do you think Montreal maximized Messi Mania last night?
No, it's the second year in a row they drop. Depends on how you qualify it, right?
Like the hype
How you
up to the
qualify it.
game.
The hype up to the game, when it comes to purely from a monetary standpoint, right? You're talking about butts in seats, you're talking about people, concessions, all that stuff. You're talking about physically present in the arena. You're talking about TV rights and everything like that. Yeah, they did capitalize in that sense. From a footballing perspective, this is the second year in a row where they dropped the ball. Because the second year in a row where they go into the game not doing so great overall in the season. They go into the game without their best 11. Because again, remember last year there were a lot of injuries. Mason Toy started up top last year, right, for against Inter Miami. And Jonathan Vivier and Bryce Duke were the players behind him, right? So they did not have their full strength 11, so they couldn't even show these new fans who doesn't really follow Montreal. They couldn't really show them what they had at their best. And on top of that, now you lose. The first game, you're up 2-0. You play the best half of football you had played up until that point, and then you completely drop the ball, and then you score, and then you concede 3, and you lose 3-2. That happens. This game here, you were good for like half an hour.
Yeah,
you were excellent for about 15 minutes, and then you kind of just capitulated. And all these Euro snobs that go, oh, MLS sucks and MLS is this, and man, if it's not Chelsea and PSG and Barcelona and Bayern and all these big European clubs, then I'm not interested, because they're not actually fucking football fans. They just want to, I don't know, they want to,
for the moment, for the gram.
exactly.
Yeah.
You're kind of validating that, so what Robbie said, we don't have much to show, but what they did have to show, they weren't even able to show it all. Right, and Hernandez Sincho came on late.
We'll get into the game.
We'll get into the game afterwards. But
Yeah.
What was provided in terms of a footballing perspective? No, they didn't capitalize on Messi Mania because they didn't even put up a fight this time.
Yeah, and
Right? If it was a super open game, it was back and forth. But then every single chance Montreal had, they fluffed their lines. Every single chance Miami had, Messi scored or Messi delivered.
Yeah.
So you're kind of like, why would I come back when Messi's not here?
Yeah, and that's
Just
something
be more of this.
that's interesting because it goes. You're absolutely right, Elias. We'll talk about the game and the field and the quality that of the players and all that, and when we get into game. But when we talk about outside of the field, right, maximizing, what makes fans come back beyond soccer? Okay, because look, I brought my wife a few times to CF Montreal games, and I brought her yesterday to. Well, we went together to watch the Montreal Alouettes, and she was like, do the Montreal Alouettes have a mascot? And I was like, yeah, it's the Alouette there, that's the bird that's going around. But what happened was that she told me, and again, I take my wife's example because she's not someone that follows sports day to day. She doesn't really care about it, doesn't know the rules. She's just there for the show, right, Elias?
Mhm. Yeah.
So, and she, one of the things that she told me was like, of all the times I've been at the CF Montreal games, this is the first time we're going to a Montreal Alouettes game, and their mascot is super interactive with the fans, making jokes and all that little things that is obvious that they're trying to make a show. Beyond that, though, yesterday they had a theme. I don't know the last time at Statue Puro they had a theme. Maybe I'm forgetting, but they had a theme, a
A
superhero theme.
couple, but it's infrequent, but they've got a couple every year.
Exactly. Yesterday was superhero, and everybody was dressed up as Spider-Man. Like they had a whole thing, and they had actually, I don't know if they were hired actors, maybe they were, but they were like people that were fully dressed up that would go around the stadium, and
Mhm.
obviously the kids wanted to take a picture with them. And so the point being is like it's a show. Yes, there's the football game that, by the way, the Alouettes lost by 1 point, which is a whole different story. But the show, you still remember the show around the game. They obviously
Yeah.
had kiss cam, they had dance cam, like, and yes, football and NBA and NHL have those stops that you don't have in soccer, right?
Yeah.
You have those little 20 15-second stops that you can do that. I 100% agree with you. But you know what they did at halftime, which might be a little bit longer than the MLS? They had the X game bikes, like the that they
Mhm.
do the little turns and all that, which was super cool for somebody that doesn't follow the sport at all. That thing is real. Now the halftime shows at CF Montreal,
They have fan competitions, right? Or something.
sometimes they like hit the bar and all that, but is it why does it have to be the soccer? Like we're talking about X Games, like that has nothing to do with football, but it's still entertaining to the eye, and apparently these kids that did it were used to like work in Cirque du Soleil, something of that sort. It doesn't matter. The point being is there was a show for everyone. You don't have to be
Mhm.
a football fan to enjoy that show. And that's what I mean when did Stats Puro Maxima. Do you want to give the fans, the everyday Joe, those that are here for the moment, do you want to give them a reason to be like, every time I go to Stats Puro, yeah, the stadium is beautiful, but they also give us a show. They give us a show beyond the field. The kids are super entertained, they're having fun, they love their, I don't know, the lady painting the face, I don't know, whatever we're talking about. So that to me, some might say, "Oh, Andy, you're comparing apples to oranges, right? It's not the same thing." But at the end of the day, it is an entertainment. It is a sport. It is a Montreal sport. And by the way, last night's stadium was jam packed. It was 21,000 people in total.
Mhm.
So on a night where Messi, it's Jazz Fest, Lionel Messi is there. And yeah. Anyway, so I know I kind of went on a rant, but I did want to kind of get it's the first time I go to a Montreal Alouettes game. I mentioned that already, and it was really impressive to me some of the things that they're doing differently to keep someone like my wife, like everyday Joe, that just doesn't really follow this sport, right? And she's like, oh, you know what? If it's like this every Sunday, every Saturday night at the CFL, it might not be a bad idea. Anyways, so do you think a lot of fans will be coming back? I know you kind of touched on it a little bit.
No. The fans that came here for Messi, it's a social event. It's a
Yeah.
concert for them. It's not a regularly occurring thing. So no, I don't think so.
I think this was the biggest game of the year for the fans, the fan, not
No,
not
not even,
not
honestly.
CF Montreal fans, the fans of Montreal of the city of Montreal, because they knew that Messi
Yeah.
was coming. But for the club, and this is something we're going to talk at the end of the show, for the club, the biggest game of the year is coming up in a few days. So we'll get right into it. Let's talk about the game. But again, as always, quick reminder before we get into the next topic. Quick reminder to click on the subscribe button on whichever platform you're listening to us from. If you like what you hear, make sure to follow us on all social media platforms, including Elias and I on X, Blue Sky, wherever you're on, just to get any updates on CF Montreal, Roses FC, Canada Soccer. while you're at it, make sure to also follow, as I mentioned, Elias and me. Let's get right into it. So CF Montreal lost versus Inter Miami. They lost by a score of 1-4, right? And yeah, we had to get into it. We had to dive into it. Forget about, we already talked about the show outside of the field. Now we got to get into the field, right?
Yep.
So we usually break it down by positions, but I just want to kind of get an overall impression, Elias, because honestly, I just want to turn the page on this game. Is the season over after this? I think
No. It could be. Depends on what happens on
MLS,
Wednesday.
MLS.
Depends on what happens on. Season's been over, man. We're still in last place. The season's been over. No, it's gonna take some kind of Herculean run. They're gonna have to win. Like, they're gonna have to be playing like the best team in the Eastern Conference if they want to just make the playoffs. And so you know what? No, unless they sign the Avengers at the end of July when the market opens. The season's been done, man. The season's been done.
Yeah, I don't know. I get this feeling that it's not done.
This is about learning what you need for next year. It's another transition year. They've played themselves into a transition year. So,
man, transition. How many more transitions before we get it right? All right. So we'll start with the defense and the goalie. What were your impressions of the defensive play? We had, well, you can go ahead and show the lineup there of last night's game. At goalie, we had Jonathan Sirois, Fernando Alvarez, Brandon Craig in defense, Luca Pachacho as left back, David Bugay as your right back, Tom Pierce as a left winger, Samuel Piet and Victor Lotori in your midfield, Kaden Clark as a 10, I want to say, as a 10, almost a striker.
Kaden Clark in the Kaden Clark position.
Yeah. There you go. And Dante Seeley on the right winger and Prince Owosu as the striker. Subs, Sebastian. Okay, cool.
You want to talk about subs? We'll talk about subs.
So we have Sebastian Breza, Mahalo Poku, Bryce Duke, Sanusi Ibrahim, Hennady Sinchuk, George Campbell, Jules Anthony Belsain, and Owen Graham Roach, Alexander Guboglu. Cool. So let's get right into it. We'll talk about the subs and everybody involved in that position. So what were the impressions of your defense? So we had the starter. We had a left back, as I mentioned, Luca Petrasso, Brandon Craig, I almost said George Campbell, Fernando Alvarez, and David Bugay. And at goalie, we had Jonathan Sirois. Elias, what were your thoughts overall on that play, on those plays?
I really like Brandon Craig's game until they push him into the midfield. We'll talk about his second half of the midfield later, but Brandon Craig's job was Luis Suarez. Granted, this is now like a 38 or 39-year-old Luis Suarez who has worse knees than I do. So this is not, this is not the same kind of challenge as before. Yes, Luis Suarez got an assist, but it was an assist and then Messi did all the work. Like, it's not like, he played this incredible, like he beat his man, played this ball, and then Messi finished. It was literally just like, here, Messi, and then Messi.
But it was clinical, though, his assist.
He passed him the ball, man.
It wasn't a back head like that? Or am I wrong?
He just passed him the ball. Like, it was really, like, innocuous. But Brendan Craig, I think, had a very good first half. Fernando Alvarez did as well as could have been expected of him, right? Because if Miami play in the loosest 4-4-2 you'll ever see, but essentially they play in a 4-4-2, which means Fernando Alvarez's job was Messi. So again, he did as well as could have been expected to him. In the first half hour, up until the first goal, really, is when everything fell apart. Allende's first goal. Up until that point, they did a fairly good job at not containing him, because again, you can't contain him when he doesn't want to be contained, but they did a good job at limiting how much damage he could actually do. They flooded him when they had to flood him. They kept Suarez away from him. They limited their actual link-ups. They found each other through other players, but they didn't actually get to play with one another that often in the first half hour. So you could tell that, that was the game plan, and they were employing it fairly successfully. David Bugay and Luca Petrasso had a good game, but they also did not nearly have their hands as full as the two center backs, because when you have Busquets, Suarez, and Messi all in the middle, that's where you get scared. Except for one chance Jordi Alba had where he hit the post. David Bugay did an excellent job on that right side, limiting Jordi Alba's involvement. So yeah, hats off to him. Luca Petrasso, I don't like this combination with Tom Pierce. and we'll talk about Tom Pierce's involvement in the duo a bit later, but the two of them don't work together. It doesn't work together against
They literally
teams.
ran into each other at some point, Elias.
Yeah, I mean they ran to each other again against Cincinnati, but I mean that's just gonna happen. But I mean my bigger problem with it is just the fact that very simple, as simply as I could put it, is that they don't complement each other. They don't look for each other. If you think about, like even when Dante Sealy was playing on that left hand side, or even Fabian Herbers, they actively sought one another out, and they played to each other's strengths. Tom Pierce's strength is only when he's out wide and on his left foot. Luca Petrasso is a proper left back. That's the only place he's going to go. So essentially, they become redundant, and you
When they
then don't
switch.
provide anything else. They'll switch and they'll kind of stay in the same line, but there won't be any kind of actual danger being created from the two of them.
Yep.
They don't find each other. They become, like I said, they become redundant. So Luca Petrasso's game wasn't terrible. He was just kind of present. I mean, he was. I don't blame him for Allende's goal. I think Jean-Paul Sirois should have done much better on that first goal. You get beat near post from outside the box like that. It was a hard shot, but it wasn't, something that was like right inside the corner. No, there was still a decent amount. I think he just got caught off guard.
Yeah.
But I really do think he should have done better on that. And again, then you have Messi's first goal, which is
Messi.
it's Messi, right? They flooded him a million times in the box, and then he couldn't get a shot off. The one time you don't flood him, he scores. It's literally that simple. If you're not perfect, then he'll kill you. The second goal was with George Campbell on the field. And, we're talking about it in the press box. We'll see what happens when George Campbell comes on, right? They conceded 2 more goals. I mean, we'll talk about, George Campbell specifically, he probably had his worst game of the year. It was only halftime, but I seriously think that this team and the way that they were lined up, the second goal went in, their spirit was entirely broken defensively, and you saw it. It was frustration, it was exasperation, it was hopeless. It was like pieces of a Renaissance painting. So defensively, it was a very good half hour, and then a despicable hour.
Yeah. No, I agree. I thought that, first of all, when I saw that Fernando Alvarez was starting, I was like, oh Lord. Just based on what I've seen from him in practice, I have not seen him play well. I think I told you, Elias, when you were there as well. I told you this dude should have received like 2 red cards in practice alone, and
Yeah.
he actually only received a yellow card yesterday's game. But after on a really weak pool of Lionel Messi, you got beat, Fernando. Like, you got beat by Lionel Messi. Let it go. You got 2 midfielders behind you. It's not a one-on-one. It's not like it's a worthy yellow card, because yes, you got beat, but you still had defenders behind you. Beyond that, I noticed that after the yellow card, he still continued being aggressive, which is the way I see him practice. I saw him practice during the week. He's aggressive. He injured Owen Graham Roach, who luckily came back the next day. But he's over aggressive. He's very physical. And the only time I saw his game get better was once they put George Campbell in the second half and they had him assigned to Lionel Messi. Does that mean that the defense got better? Not necessarily, but Fernando Alvarez's performance got better because he was less forced to
He
follow
wasn't
someone.
targeted as much.
Exactly. He
It was
was.
just passing the target to George Campbell.
Yeah, exactly. George Campbell. Well, we'll talk about him a little later, but yeah, I agree with you that David Bugai and both Luca Petrasso and David Bugai had decent games. They did. The only thing is in those 2 goals, because there's one that came from the left side and there's one that came from the right side. Both of them bangers to the corner. And honestly, they were just great shots. They were great shots. But the thing is, I felt like in those specific goals, both Luca Petrasso and David Bugai respected their opponent too much. They gave them too much space, and you just can't give these attackers that much space. You got to really like suffocate them at all you can. And just that little space that they gave was enough for them to score a goal. I like what I saw from Jonathan Sirois. I thought he had a solid game. He had some incredible saves. He had some really, really good saves. Oh, and by the way, I don't know if this was talked much about because I didn't see it, but Fernando Alvarez also gave a goal, almost gave a goal, made another knuckleheaded mistake by giving away the ball to Luis Suarez right in front of the goal. I don't know if you remember that, where he just like
Yeah,
passed
but
it.
there was so much chaos in the first, like it was towards the beginning of the game.
Yeah, and
There
I
was
was like,
so much
what is
chaos that it kind of just like blended into the background. The first half hour was super hectic.
But we're remembering that tonight if that is a goal. If Luis Suarez actually is
Yeah,
like 10 years ago, Luis Suarez, and he
if
would have like killed us with that. But obviously, he even Luis Suarez was surprised that the ball was passed by passed back to him by his center back. He was like, "Oh, what happened?" And obviously, Dante Cito took it away. Point being is, I don't want to see Fernando Alvarez start again. I don't. I think he either has to leave the team to change the environment, or he needs to make massive strides of improvement before he and I know there were rumors that he was going to leave. I don't know if that's if there's any truth to that, but yeah. Do you think this is the kind of game that George Campbell should have started? Any chance? Or is it better that they saved him for
George
Sunday?
Campbell has been the team's Iron Man 100%. He's played I think he's played as much as Prince Owusu has. He's been one of the constants this season.
Yeah,
Which means there has to be a damn good reason why when Messi comes to town, when this Miami team comes to town, your best player this year, bar none, isn't in the starting 11. We saw him, doing solo work for most of the week last week.
yeah,
So it shouldn't come as too big a surprise. They were probably doing a lot of solo work to prepare him to be available to start last night. That wasn't the case. Um, it's unfortunate, but again, we're talking about in the press box. Does George Campbell really change the outcome of this game? Probably not. In the first half, except for that Messi goal, right? Could the back line did as well as could have been expected of them,
yeah.
right? It was a very open game. Montreal was like, we will live and die by how open this game is. Okay, fine. That means we're entrusting like Piet Latourie and the back line to just stop Messi and company, and then send numbers forward and just play the open game. Um, Again, yeah. So Siwa had a very good game, or a very good start to the game at least. But that Allende goal that kind of evened things up, he's the one that got caught off guard. His mistake let them back into the game. So again, it's kind of been Jean Siwa's trademark. It's a lot of good stuff, a lot of not so good stuff, and that's kind of been his year this year. So, should George Campbell have started? I mean, yeah, because you want to put your best foot forward, but with the benefit of hindsight, he was just as miserable in that center back position as every other center back that played the game.
Probably,
He wasn't better, right?
probably
And
because like, yeah, sorry,
On Messi's goal, that turned inside out twice,
yeah,
right?
that was ugly.
This
Yeah,
is the best on-ball defender on the team, and this is one of the most underrated defenders in MLS. And he got embarrassed twice,
yeah.
right? So
But don't you think he brings a little bit more stability for, say, a youngster like Brandon Craig, having them there and having them on the field already? He's already played Lionel Messi 4 times, right? Since he's joined the team,
George Campbell, yeah.
he's played him
But
four
if
times.
that's the case, that means that Campbell would have taken Messi, and then Alvarez would have been on Suarez.
No, I want Brandon Craig and George Campbell. I don't want Alvarez on the field anymore. I don't think both profiles of Craig and Alvarez just don't match with one another. They don't know what game. When we spoke with Jalen Neal, one of the things he said, he was like, George Campbell and I understand each other's styles. We're both
Mhm.
fast, physical center backs. And it's true. They've displayed it. They both have very similar styles. What style does Fernando Alvarez bring you? What style does Brandon Craig bring you? I don't think they even know what
Things
style he
only
brings.
got really bad once
Sampiet left.
once Sampiet left, right? It's kind of a good segue into the midfield, but
Yeah, let's get it.
shit only really hit the fan in the second half because the first half, yeah, they scored 2 goals, but one was again, there is context necessary. In the second half, they were completely overrun. It was the same amount of goals, but let's not pretend to think that it was the same level of play, right? And Brandon Craig, for all the credit we gave him for his game against NYCFC last week, he was lost last night. He was on an
Overwhelmed.
entirely different planet. Victor Loturi was stuck running for two, and Brendan Craig was never in the right position, like at all. This was a significant step backwards, right? And I get it when when you have Messi to worry about and Busquets in the middle of the field and they're playing, and they're linking up. But if that's the case, why are you never in the middle? Why was there so much space? There was in the second half, it was even more open, but not in the kind of way that promotes your team getting forward. It was just open for the sake of being open. There were gaps there were gaps in the field where it doesn't matter how open the game is, they should be filled. So I think honestly, in a game like that, Samed Piet coming off, I mean, for obvious reasons, he talked about his health and and he's slowly but surely, hopefully, going to make his way back to being 100%. Um, but a game like this, the second Samed Piet came off,
It was obvious.
it was disastrous. And people still to this day, for some reason that escapes me, um, give Samed Piet shit because he's not, you know, as good with the ball as other midfielders. You saw it the second he got off; it was a nightmare. There's stuff Samir does that no one else on the team could do, and very few people in all of MLS can do. So again, Vic Luturi played well. Samir Piet had a good first half. Brendan Craig had a great first half at center back, and then the second he stepped into the midfield, it was a disaster.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, Craig, Campbell, and Alvarez, the three of them was a nightmare. Honestly, it was just a nightmare.
But the truth is, like, look, we had Samuel Piet and Victor Lotoria at midfield, and then we had Caden Clark, I guess, as a false 10 on the top, false 9, sorry. But I felt like Victor Lotori, after the excellent, and we said it in this pod, I felt like he had an excellent game against NYCFC, including the goal. Beyond that, he was all over the field. When I spoke to the Inter Miami podcast, they asked me, what player should we watch for, and it's hard to say right now, Elias, what player should anybody watch out for in CF Montreal. But I told him, watch out for Victor Lotori, because if he's on top of his game, he is the connector of the backfield with the front. But yesterday, it was just a disaster. He was not himself. He was passing some balls that seemed easy last week and were just seeming difficult yesterday. You mentioned that maybe it was fatigue because he had to make up for the ground for Brandon Craig. I felt like this wasn't the game that they should have tried out Brandon Craig as a defensive midfield. Now, if you tell that to Marco Donadell, he might tell you, well, we're in an emergency situation, so I had to do
Who
what I
else
could
is
do.
there?
Exactly, right? But that's where we're at. That's just where we're at. You mentioned last year, Elias. Last year, we actually had midfielders because normally we would have had Nathan Saliba, right, to make up for Samuel
And
Piet's
Matthew
sickness.
Fournette was our last year.
But last year, May 11th was the day that Lionel Messi came to Montreal last year. And you know what happened on May 11th? Olivier Renard resigned.
Birthday. Oh,
Your brother's birthday, obviously. Olivier Renard resigned. Mathieu Chouanière had requested a trade. There was a lot of shit going on outside the field, but on the field there was still players. They were still competitive. They were still good. I think yeah, and that same week I believe it was that Joseph Martinez got injured. Anyways, the point being is, it was ugly yesterday in the midfield. The midfield seemed non-existent. Victor Lotori, I was like, oh my God, he's still on? Like, I couldn't believe it because he was not matching up well with Sergio Busquets, and they were just having a blast in the midfield. And Lionel Messi kept coming down to the midfield because he was overpowering that, like you mentioned, kind of pulling Brandon Craig with him, and Brandon Craig was no match for that. The subs, I think maybe Duke replaced Caden Clark as a false 9.
Well, actually, he replaced Tom Pierce and then put Kane Clark out wide. But yes, he went into the middle of the field.
What were your impressions of Bryce Duke's first game back? And how much is it? 2-3 months now?
It looks like a guy that hasn't played a game in 2 months. I mean,
right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what people expected of Bryce Duke. He wasn't gonna change the game. It's his first appearance, since May, I think. So I don't know what people were waiting for. This felt more like a conditioning stint than like an actual impact substitution.
Yeah.
Same thing with Hennady Sinchuk. it was kind of just like, yeah, go ahead, get your legs back. That was it. I felt like the case for both of them, honestly.
Yeah, well. That transitions us into the attack, right? Unless you want to add anything else about the midfield, there wasn't much to
God
say,
no.
honestly. But let's talk about it. Prince Owosu, then we had Dante Sealy, and then we had on the left side Tom Pierce. Scrap Tom Pierce. I'm sorry. I'm over it. Like
Look,
it's
with
little to
Hernandez
no
Sinchuk
impact.
back, and with Hernandez Sinchuk back and Bryce Duke back, they have more options now. I think this is the end of Tom Pierce as a left winger because there was literally nobody else, right? But honestly, again, this is another not terrible cameo from Alexander Guboglu as a winger.
Yeah.
I don't think he's there yet, but it's somebody that can bring something different, right? We know how much Marco Donadel likes it when his wingers can cut onto their strong foot on an off wing. I'd say like I wouldn't be surprised if Alexander Guboglu got the start on Wednesday against Forge. Again, we'll talk about all that after, but I really do think that Guboglu deserves some consideration right now because, and again, with respect to Pierce and his delivery, because his corner, he had a phenomenal corner during the game that went right to Prince's head, free header, and then Owusu
He
fluffed his
passed it
line.
to Sealy. I was furious.
Oh no, he didn't pass. He 100% missed that. Let's
Oh,
be
it was a
honest.
miss. I thought it was a
There's
pass.
no way in hell he tried to pass that to Dante Sealy. He definitely missed the header, but that corner was phenomenal.
Yeah.
But besides that, he brought absolutely nothing. So it physically could not be any worse than what Tom Pierce provided yesterday. So yeah, screw it. Let Guboglu get a chance. So I think that he's a better dribbler, and I mean I can't really speak to his shooting, but I mean Tom Pierce is not a shooter by trade. So screw it, man. What's the
Yeah.
worst that could happen?
Look, I mean, look, it's one of those games that I would have thought they would have maybe gone to Alexander Bogoglu sooner because honestly, I felt like Miami just shut out Tom Pierce's side. He made it way too easy. Like I told you, there was an instance where Tom Pierce and Luca Petrasso ran into each other. You say, yeah, it happens in sports. Yeah, it does. It happened in 2 games in a row. Now that to me is an issue because that means that these are 2 players that are not fully aware of their surroundings of what's going on, and they're not fully either. One of them is either ahead or one of them is behind their positioning, and it's messing everything up because it makes it easy for the 2 team when you lose out on 2 players because they
Mhm.
collided with each other. So I didn't like Tom Pierce's performance. I think he's an excellent crosser. Yes, he has great corners, but that's all he has. What else does he bring you? He's not a speedster. He's not. He doesn't have incredible shots.
Yeah, no,
I mean, he doesn't have. mm, he's. I don't know if he's a transition. I can call him a transition. When we spoke to him on Thursday when I was there in practice, I asked him, "What's your best position? You've been left wing back. You've been left back, left winger. Where are you now? What's your position?" And he said he told us he was like, "I'm a left winger. That's the position I'm comfortable with." So okay, show me more as a left winger, especially in an Inter Miami game where the world's eyes are in that game. But anyways, let's move on to Prince Owosu. What did you think of his game? He scored a goal, right? He scored a goal
I don't
assisted by Lionel
care.
Messi. By Lionel Messi.
Yeah, he scored a goal that was handed to him on a silver platter by the best playmaker in history. Like, yeah, I mean, he did well to finish that. But 4 goals in 4 games. By the way, I will give him credit where credit is due for all the shit we gave him in the first 2 months of the season. Four
He's
goals his
scoring.
last 4 games. We said 10 goals this season is a win. He's already at 7, right, in all competitions. So credit where credit is due. His body of work over the course of the whole season, in terms of just pure production, is on track to be a fairly decent season for what was expected of him. Because there was also the expectation that Jack was going to be around for more than, Romel Kyoto amount of games. So with that being said, Prince Owusu, whose best trait by far is his ability to hold up the ball, refuses to give the ball up. Especially after they scored that first goal and they had all the momentum on their side. There was a lot of space and they could have easily doubled their lead inside the first 15 minutes a
Yes.
number of times if he was just willing to give the ball up. And how many times did he hold up play not in a good way, not like actual hold up back to net, but actually hold up the offense
Yes.
because he did not want to move the ball quickly. There were runs being made in behind by Caden Clark and by Dante Sealy, and he just would. There was one by Victor Latour. Oh my God.
Yeah, I
Victor
took a
Latour
snapshot.
was
Yeah.
alone.
Yeah.
He was entirely alone. He was hauling ass and he was clear. All you had to do was play. Didn't even have to be. It wasn't even a difficult pass. You just chuck it over the top,
Yeah.
and it's there. And he either did not look or did not want to look or ignored it. I don't know what it is. But for somebody who gives his teammates so much shit when they don't play him the right ball, you are well within your rights to give your teammates shit if they don't provide you with the necessary service. You better damn well be ready to give service when your teammates need it. It's not one of those things where, oh, you're not giving me the ball, so I'm not going to give you the ball. He doesn't trust his teammates. He's not playing like he does, right? We didn't really talk about Caden Clark. I think Caden Clark had a fairly okay game. Again, it's not the standard that he set last season, but it's definitely since that Houston game, it's been a significant step forward for him just in terms of confidence. Again, today he was extremely confident. He should have gotten an assist if Dante Sealy knew how to hit the freaking target. But so Caden Clark played well. Prince Owusu, goal or no goal, was a very frustrating element of the game.
Yeah.
And look, he's not the reason they lost. There's a million factors as to why they lost, but he did not put his team in a better position to win, regardless of whether or not he scored that first goal. He didn't put his team in the position to win the game, and so he's who you go with right now at striker because Sunusi Rahim obviously does not have the favor. Jonathan Ivisan can't stay healthy, and neither can Jack Mavrioni, and there's no other strikers. So unless for the next 3 weeks or for the next 18 days, at least he's the only striker.
And quickly, just tell me, Dante Sealy, what'd you think?
I love Dante Sealy. I hate how much I love Dante Sealy, man. He's
the
only
pure
one
winger. Pure winger.
He's the only one creating stuff. Now, that being said, if I'm gonna give Prince Owusu shit for stuff that he should be doing, Dante Sealy hit the fucking target, man. Oh my God. He he was on another planet in terms of just like yesterday with just his willingness to get forward and create something, especially something out of nothing. But for the love of God, man, we've seen you shoot the ball well. This is not like I don't know who you are. And again, if he was that reliable, that quick, and that good dribbling, he would not be a player that you pick up on a trial, right? For me, he's already proven to be a steal based on what they're paying him. Him, Petrasso, and Craig, for me, all three of them are all steals based on just like they're getting paid peanuts compared to what they're producing. But Dante Sealy could have had at least 2 goals that game. And it's not like, oh, if you've done this is no. As in, like, you need to score those. You're right there. This is a warm-up shot. All you have to do is not directly shoot the ball at him, at the keeper, and you score. And they did. So, yeah Dante Sealy had again, kind of like Prince Owusu, had an extremely frustrating game because I see you doing the right things and you refuse to follow up on it.
Yeah.
So
now you tell me who I'm talking about now, okay? They had an excellent game. They were very productive offensively, but just for themselves and nobody else. Am I talking about Prince Owusu or Dante Sealy? Who of them? Because it's pretty much a copy paste for both of them, except the only thing was that Prince Owusu actually scored a goal. Dante Sealy, like you mentioned, he had some fantastic moments, but it's almost like he's a one-trick pony. And maybe it's age, maybe it's experience, but he had the goal in front of him and he was like, goal open, shoot. But he had excellent runs being done by Caden Clark. This was the first game, as you mentioned. I do feel that that Caden Clark is getting better, but I also feel like yesterday's game was the first time I actually saw him frustrated that they weren't connecting. And I saw him, because of that frustration, force stuff, like really stay with the ball too long and lose the ball, which made it seem like Caden Clark was not having a good game because he was forcing stuff. But then at the same time, I saw that he was actually trying. He was doing good runs, but they weren't connecting because the midfield wasn't working.
You can't get mad at Dante Sealy for trying stuff and then also say Caden Clark had a good game for trying stuff, though.
No, 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 no,
right?
no.
Like Prince Owusu, they're seeing Prince and Sealy is that at least Sealy actively tried stuff when he was like right in front of the net. It did
Yeah.
not come off, but like he would take someone out with the dribble. He wasn't as wasteful of opportunities, like of creating opportunities. But yeah, Clark has to get on the ball more, man. But like he has every right to give his teammates shit because there were some really good positions. And again,
No, I
he
agree.
created. He should have had at least 2 assists last night. At least 2 assists
I agree, and
because
I
he's
think
been putting it on a platter. But I
I
think that honestly,
yeah.
until
I
Fabian Herbers gets back, if Hennady Sindrick is healthy, you play the three of them in the middle. You have Clark on the left, Sindrick in the middle, and Sealy on the right, and all three of them can hurt defenses. And I'd love to see them work together.
I think if I just think that if Dante Sealy has some competition, somebody that's pushing him to be better in the sense like we saw yesterday where Dante Sealy at some point seemed like he was just forcing stuff. Like you said, like you can't be unhappy about him trying stuff, but sometimes it just felt like he was being very predictable. This is something we saw with Milton when we were at practice, how predictable he could be with the moves that he was making, the shots and everything. And by the way, I didn't see him score any goals from those. He took those shots in practice, and those shots didn't score. And they won't always, but I mean, at some point they do have to get in. They do have to. Those shots have to be for sure shots. And um, if Henry Central can stay healthy and push Dante Sealy to kind of to allow Donadell to build some accountability to his players. You're sucking today. We're putting somebody else in. That's what needs to be done. But right now, they don't have the bench for it. They don't have the quality in the bench for it for these positions. So it's hard to create any kind of competition. Um, Prince Owosu, I saw him very frustrated, not only at himself, but you're right. He absolutely spends a lot of the game giving a lot of his teammates shit whenever they don't pass him the ball. You're 100% right in that. But yesterday, Prince Owosu held the team back with some of his decisions that he made. Because, like you said, I saw that replay. I actually took a snapshot, put it on my X account of that Victor Loturi run because he had a
Oh, that was maddening.
1v1 versus the goalie if they pass him the ball. But it was that's what I mean, Elias, how many times have we said this on this pod on a Sunday night after every game? They missed that pass, they missed that shot,
Yeah, it's
they
a
did
broken
this,
record.
that, so it's a little bit frustrating. So we can go around in circle. Quickly, just to finish off the game. Sinchuk, Bryce Duke came in to sub to Alexander Guboglu. You touched a little bit on it. What do you think of the subs overall? Sinchuk, I'm pretty excited about it, man. Not too bad.
Yeah, he's so smooth. He's such a cool
Natural.
cat. Um, yeah, I'm really excited to see him actually in a sustained run of games. I hope that. I mean, first and foremost, he's 18, right? First and foremost, make sure he's fully healthy. I don't care if he doesn't get minutes, if there's the slightest, most remote chance of him not being fit. But he's so interesting to watch. He's very captivating when he's on the ball. I'd love to see him in a 10 position if he can play, if he's more comfortable there. But honestly, everybody else, eh. Alexander Gaboglu had like one good run. That was okay. But the rest, I mean, again, by the time he came on, the game was finished.
Yeah.
And we're not gonna talk about George Campbell because we already talked about George Campbell.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about that anymore.
Tier. But no, I mean, Emil Kaza tells us Prince Owosu does not deserve to be part of the team. I think that's harsh. I think he's done a lot given the circumstances. I think
Again, who else, man? Who's gonna be there?
Sunusi, bring in Sunusi, baby. Let's go. Oh yeah, let's talk about Sunusi. Sunusi was a substitute.
Oh fuck, he was. Yeah,
Dude.
actually, he had a chance to score too. He actually had a decent.
A chance, Elias. A chance. A chance. What? Hey, you want to do the XC, the percentage of goal that he needs to score that? Are you kidding
I
me?
don't.
You're there for 3 minutes and you have that kind of chance? Dude, you are literally starving for minutes. All you need to do is score a goal and make people root for you again. And you miss something. That's just because you're late. You're late. Why are you late to the ball, Elias? Because you're out of shape. You're not in game shape. So yeah,
That ball was phenomenal, though.
who
That
I
ball
forgot. It was
across.
Sinchuk that
It
crossed
was
it, right?
Duke.
Oh yes, but Sinchuk set it up from the side. Did you see the
Yeah.
Sinchuk to do pass? That was something. That was phenomenal passing. But yeah, and that finishing touch. If Prince of Wolsu would have been there, but no, it's excited. But you know what? Speaking of excitement, we got to talk about the future because the future is
What
now.
the fuck's
Right?
exciting about the future, man?
Okay, relax. There is exciting future. Okay, second leg of the Canadian Championship at Stade
I'm
Saputo
not excited
midweek.
about that. I'm
And,
mortified.
and CF Montreal is down 0-1, 1-0 because of the first game at Hamilton back in May, bro. We're talking about May. It's July. Okay? Back in May, they went down 1-0, and now they have to climb their way back. Is there any chance that they turn this series around with what you've seen?
100%. 100%. There's a chance. I mean, let's not be ridiculous. There's 100% a chance that they win the game by 2 goals against a CPL team. It's very possible. Is it likely? No. I think this game is going to be very complicated for Montreal. Forge are in the driver's seat and they know it. They're in. I mean, Montreal has won 2 games, but they've only scored more than one goal, like more than one goal once in their last like 6 games. They
More than
scored
one goal in their
once in their last 6 games. They scored more than one goal. It was the Houston game.
Houston game, yeah.
Up until the last Inter Miami game, actually. Oddly and funny enough. Forge, on the other hand, are once again like they didn't have a good start to the season, but they are kind of they're back in cruise control. They're unbeaten in their last million. They're unbeaten since they got knocked out of the Champions League, I think. And they're back to their best. So this is going to be a very difficult game. But to go and say that an MLS team can't beat a CPL team by 2 goals is kind of ridiculous.
Yep.
Will they is an entirely different story. But I think there is definitely a possibility. I think that the offense, for all the shit we've given the offense, this is the most confident and competent team that we've seen all season going forward. It's the midfield that I'm worried about. It's the middle of the park because Brendan Craig has shown that's a little bit hit or miss. Victor Latour does a lot of running and a lot of good.
Waterman's back. Joel
Waterman will be back. I don't know where he's going to fit in. If they tie, do they go straight to penalties? I think they do.
Yeah,
I think it goes straight to penalties.
The away goals don't count anymore. That's what I had read before.
I don't remember. I honestly don't remember.
Yeah. But no, look, just to give you an idea.
It's so hard keeping track of which competitions keep count away goals and which don't anymore. The Champions League kind of fucked all that up, and now
next up, Leagues Cup, baby. Let's go.
Don't say that. Anyway,
so look, the first leg, Elias, we had Opoku on left wing. We were still playing back three. It looks like it's back three. I don't know. I don't think we were back three. Prince Owosu as a 9, Guboglu as a right winger. We had Tom Pierce as a left winger. Victor Latour, Nathan Saliba as midfield. David Bugay as a right back. We had Fernando Alvarez, Joel Waterman, and Brandon Craig as back line.
Dante Waterman played in the midfield that game.
Sorry?
I think Waterman was in the midfield that game.
Maybe he was. That's why. But
I'm pretty sure
for some reason they put him on the back three. But no, it wasn't a back three. Absolutely right. Dante Tilly and Sam Piet came in as subs. Owen Graham Roach and Jules Anthony Vilsaint came in as subs later on. The only person that I see here that didn't come in as a sub, surprisingly, was Giacomo Brioni. He stayed on the bench during that game. I highly doubt we're gonna have a. We're gonna have him back this game either. It doesn't seem that way in any case to me.
Definitely not.
But I think we do stand a chance. I think CF Montreal does stand a chance to come back and beat Forge. But they are. I want to say that I've said this every game. They're going to have a perfect game, and I don't mean a perfect game by a CF Montreal standard. I'm talking about a perfect game with the standards of an MLS team. Okay, not matched to a CPL team, because Forge is a great team. They really have proved it over and over again that they can match up to anybody, and they need to have a perfect game. We need to see the game that they had against NYCFC, where it was just a collective. It was a great collective effort from all of them, and And yeah, that's the only way they're gonna have, because if they make one bad move, one bad pass, one bad decision, and they go down 2-0, or they go 1-0 instead to Poodle, man. So that's my next question, Elias. What if they don't win? MLS is over. Canadian Championship is over. What do the fans and players have to play for in the season? What do they have to look forward to at that point?
The fans have nothing to look forward to. The
Why?
fans, but here's what you have to do now. Any player,
Sorry.
any player that uh any player that you don't see coming back, if you're the staff now, the coaching staff, any player you don't see coming back next year does not play another minute. This is basically your preseason for next year. Because exactly, and Robbie kind of said it, just improvement. Um that's it. Right? You play everyone that's coming back, whatever new signings you get in the summer, you play them to kind of get in to become familiar with the team and understand the system and the culture and the club and everything like that. And anyone that you plan on letting go, or that plan on trading, or or having them leave, that doesn't leave in the summer, just simply doesn't play anymore. Right, unless you're down bodies, or you're just rotating the squad for fatigue reasons, because it's a congested schedule and it's the League Cup and who gives a shit.
Yeah.
Right? But it's literally just a preseason at that point. So what do fans have to? Nothing. The diehard fans will show up until they don't, and the casual fans will go, "Why would I?" At this point, it's just don't win the wooden spoon. That's what you're holding on for. If you get knocked out of the Canadian Championship, your only job is to maybe try and finish above Toronto. That would be nice, but more importantly is don't finish behind LA, because right now it's LA versus Montreal for this thing, right? Let me
LA just won. LA don't won their last game against.
they're 2 points behind Montreal, right? So I mean, St. Louis is also there, and Toronto's 5 points ahead of LA. So I can't believe we're talking about this like it's a fucking playoff race, but it
Playoffs.
really is. This is purely now. It's a preseason, right? It's a preseason, and make sure you don't finish in last place. Those are the only two things I care about if this team gets knocked out of the Canadian Championship.
Yeah, honestly, at that point, and I've mentioned it, I think every month since since they, like, I think they were on that 7-game losing streak away from home. I was like, guys, at this point, if you want to enjoy what you're watching on the field, do it for your mental health. Don't focus on the results. Don't
And
focus on the score.
smile.
Focus on who's improving, who's getting better, who might be sold because they're getting better. Forget it. We're not making it to playoffs, but it becomes that message that I said at the beginning of the season becomes even louder if we lose the Canadian Championship. I don't think they'll lose it, because this is the most important game of the year for the club. I'm not talking about the fans. The fans, the big game was the Miami game, because everybody wants to see Messi. But for the CF Montreal club, the biggest game of the year is this one here, is Forge FC. Gabriel Gervais has said it repeatedly in different press conferences that they want to get some sort of silverware. Are they going to get the MLS silverware? No, but they have a shot at the Canadian Championship. So I really do think, and yes, Robbie, CF Montreal could go ahead of Toronto. It is a
They're
possibility.
only 3 points back, so
Yeah, and
theoretically.
Toronto is, if you ever watch any of their games, man, it's not pretty. It's not a pretty picture. They're not playing any better than CF Montreal. Um, and speaking of, Toronto, because they let go of the big Italian duo, the biggest bust of signings, right, Elias, of the history of
Yeah.
the MLS, with Lorenzo Insigne and Federico Bernardeschi, who signed subsequently with Bologna
Which is going to, I
FC.
don't think it's official yet.
Well, Fabrizio Romano has already said his. Here
Heavily
we go.
reported on, whatever.
Supposedly tomorrow he's having his physical. Elias, am I crazy to want him to come on a loan to CF Montreal from Bologna? I think he's a
It will be funny, but like, first of all, I don't think Bologna are going to spend any kind of significant money and then just ship them to Montreal. Any kind of Bologna signing is either not a favorite that comes to Montreal is either not a favorite player or a young player that they want to get minutes. Someone like Bernardeschi will not be that guy. Like, as funny as that is to think about, and I'm like, oh my god, can you imagine? It makes no sense why they would spend all that money and just loan him to Montreal.
To help
Bernardeschi
them
is
save
still
their season, maybe no, with that motive, and maybe give them more
save
minutes.
what season? It's the Canadian Championship. If you can't win the Canadian Championship without Bernardeschi, he's not going to be like the. I mean, he very well might be, but like, if you can't beat Forge, then the Canadian Championship should not be on your radar.
Gotcha.
Right? You still have Vancouver to beat, assuming they get to the final. Right? So if CPL teams are your problem, you have you have such bigger problems than whether or not you have Federico Bernardeschi that I'm not even thinking about it.
All right, fair.
It would be fun.
Crazy.
It would. Robbie said, right? It's not crazy. It would be fun. It would absolutely be fun. It would be hilarious. First of all,
Yeah.
second of all, he does fit the system because he can
Yeah.
play in the 10. He could play on the right, and would instantly be the best player on the team.
Yeah,
100%.
He's an elite winger, and I tell you that because
But he could also play the 10. I think he'd be better in the 10 than he would be on the wing. Personally,
whatever it is,
because
every time
there's already too many really good left-footed right wingers that like to cut in onto their strong foot. There's going to be a fourth one now.
Yeah, do it.
There's Escobar, Sinchuk, and Sealy. Let's add a fourth one. No, put him in the 10.
Come on, Escobar's more of a midfielder. I hope no.
Escobar played on the right with Guatemala, and he was excellent.
Maybe the game, like the few games I've seen him, he's always been a little more 10. But yeah, he plays. He kind of drifts around every position. But that's just one crazy Andy rumor in my head, right? But there are some rumors though, right? Because the MLS secondary transfer window opens July 24th, which seems like such a long time from now, but it's actually not. And right now, CF Montreal, as we speak, are wheeling and dealing, trying to find the right players for the Nadal system, for CF Montreal system, and trying to make something out of nothing with this season, right?
Yeah.
The Nadal has gone on several press conferences asking for quality player. Before I ask you the question of
what this team,
exactly, there you go. I don't think I've ever heard a coach like publicly ask so frequently, I need more quality players. But before we get into the what this team really needs, there has been one rumor that has been circulating for a while now about a goalkeeper, the Chilean goalkeeper, right? Milton George tweeted a few, I think an hour ago, that a Montreal fan ran into Thomas Gillier this weekend in a city store in Montreal. He just sent me this photo privately. As a reminder, the goalkeeper on loan from Bologna will not be able to be registered with the Impact roster until the opening of the second transfer window on July 24th. He's in Montreal. I haven't seen him, and we haven't seen him in the practices that we've been in. So maybe he's just finishing up the signings, physicals, whatever it is. He's in Montreal, which is a big deal already that he's in Montreal, right? He's another goalkeeper. Again, I said we want to look into what this team really needs for the future. Is a goalkeeper something the team really needs right now?
Not desperately, but if you have someone like that can be that's offered to you, you take it. Sebastian Breza will become the third string keeper.
Logan Ketterer.
And will effectively become Logan Ketterer. But again, Jonathan Sirois and Thomas Gillier as a tandem, it's not the worst thing in the world. Again, I've had no problems with Jonathan Sirois at an MLS level. If he has, aspirations of playing in Europe, I think that I don't see it.
That window's closing fast, Elias.
I think, honestly, I think it's closed.
Yeah.
I think it's closed.
Yeah.
Unless there's an insanely rapid and steep improvement curve in a couple facets of play that European football mandates. It's not a nice to have, it's a need to have. I think he's stuck in MLS. But that's the thing, right? He can be a very good MLS keeper. He's shown it. He's still young. You have to remember, right? He's by no means a veteran. He's a veteran, but he's by no means old. And so his consistency is going to improve. I think he's already a good communicator and he's a good director back there. He's obviously a proven shot stopper. I mean, again, I gave him a hard time about the the first goal last night, but he's a proven shot stopper. Um, and a little competition never hurt anybody, right? As much as Sebastian Reza is a vocal and an important guy in the locker room, I'm assuming
Very
because of how he connects with everybody and he's a motivator. He was never a real serious threat to Jean Tassiwa, to his position as starter. Someone like Gidier, on the other hand, would 1,000,000% actually make Jean Tassiwa go, I have actual competition now, and my spot is not solidified.
But didn't we
I'm
say
not
that
saying
about
that
Emil Gazdov?
no, because he came from CPL,
Uh,
right? He's in Jean Tassiwa's position like 3 years ago, right? And again, if James Batamis doesn't get hurt and miss what, like almost 2 months,
yeah.
we may not have Jean Tassiwa as we know him, right? Jean Tassiwa took his chance and made it happen. But if James Batamis doesn't get hurt 5 minutes into the season, you never really know, right? There's a whole lot of ifs.
Yeah.
Emil Gazdov, I'm not saying a loan would help, but they clearly brought him in because they saw something. They don't want you don't just go and buy a CPL keeper to have a third string for shits and giggles, especially not someone of his stature.
Yeah.
So they definitely have plans of him. What they are remains to be seen. But someone like Tomashi cuts to the front of the line, right? He's immediately, contending for that starting position. He passes
Is it
Gazdov,
his
he
skill
passes
set or
Garzov.
is it because he's on a loan from Bologna that you think he's ready
Both,
to go?
both.
Yeah. Bologna
Right?
is prioritized.
You have to actively be horrible to be from Bologna and not get any kind of minutes,
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Because you're right. Bologna during the Olivier Renard era, they would only send us players, and I'll include Lassi Lapalainen on that one, players that they didn't want, that they tried and they did not want. Now it seems like Hennady Senchuk and now Thomas Gillier, before Bologna, before they make their start with Bologna, they want them to gain the experience
yeah,
of MLS. So that kind of philosophy, that kind of synergy between the two clubs seems to be changing. Now, let's quickly get into it, right? So, what are some of the needs? We said goalkeeping is not the most emergency. We have defense, midfield, attacking. What do you think are the team's biggest needs? And
I
don't
just think it's funny because this is the first time that I can remember where Montreal do not desperately need a fullback. When was the last time that happened?
yeah,
Where at the top of your list is a fullback, left or right. That's wow, what a miracle. Anyway, personally, I have 3 spots that absolutely need to be filled before anything else. The first one is a proper creative midfielder, not a 10, a creative midfielder that
a
can
connector.
play deep and link up play. Someone like, again, you're asking a lot, but someone like Ricky Puig. Even someone like Brendan Kermaski, who also has a very high work rate and can combine quite well. That's one. The other one is a proper left winger, right? Someone like Anisinchuk or Dante Sealy that's right-footed and that can do the same thing on the other side. Because again, we've seen how one-dimensional that attack can come from, where if they're not finding Prince Owusu with a long ball, he can hold up the play and then develop, and they can't find Dante Sealy one-on-one on the right, then there's nothing else happening on the left side. There's zero creativity happening on the left side. There's no danger being developed. It's a whole lot of nothing. It's just the desert out there, right? They need a left winger that can create and that can, occupy space and defensive attention for himself. And lastly, they need a striker. They need a striker, right? I don't care what Jack Morvioni is here and he's shown a lot of good stuff, but if he's going to continue putting up Romel Kyoto numbers in terms of games played and minutes played, you can't, like, Montreal fans can't just be like, oh, but when Veroni comes back, it's going to be awesome. When he comes back, it's going to be awesome. When Romel Kyoto comes back, it's going to be awesome. Shit, he just got hurt for another month. Like, yeah, Giacomo Veroni on the field is awesome.
Yeah.
He's definitely in a much better zone, like just confidence and mentally, than when he was in New England. You could see that on the field, He's getting his confidence back. The problem is he's got such shit luck, and I feel so bad for him.
It does.
Right?
It does. Yeah, he does have
But
really, really bad
if you
luck.
have people like Mahala and Sunusi and Dominic Yankov, who's gone, and even to a certain extent Jonathan Ivisang, who are not getting any minutes and have one foot out the door, you have Jack Mavrioni, you have Prince Owusu, you need another striker. You need another one, because if you have Jack Mavrioni as a player that you can get when you can, and then another top striker, and then in addition to that, you have Prince Owusu, who has his own profile and who can do his own thing off the bench. That's a really good core. So those are my three that are absolutely necessary.
Okay. I think my three, I also have three positions that I feel that is needed. Left winger, as you mentioned, urgent, and not one. Don't bring me one, bring me two or three. Bring me a backup, bring me a project, bring me a veteran. There needs to be solid competition in the left wing. I think we found that in the right winger. Now you need that in the left winger. I think you need a 10, a veteran 10, not a project like a Kaden Clark or a Bryce Duke. Bring me a veteran 10 that knows the position, that can actually teach these kids properly how to play this position. And then, as you mentioned, that creative midfielder, right? The one that connects the back to the top, because Samuel Pietz cannot do that. He's an excellent player, but his role is limited. And even now, he's injured, and it's super noticeable when he's not on the field, or he's playing like half a Samuel Piet right now. So those are my positions. I think there needs to be not just like glorified starters. I think there needs to be competition, as you mentioned. The goalkeeper, he's not a guaranteed starter, but he's bringing competition. That's important. A lot of players like Dante Seeley, as much as he's been performing well, has not had much competition since Hernandi Centric's been injured. Also, Prince Owusu, you mentioned it as well. Who's competing to get his position? Another Shape Sunusi, Jude Nathaniel is saying that, again, often injured and honestly disappears in most of the games. There needs to be more competition in every position. Some people, players that are hungry to wanna take that next step in their career, or actually help this team get somewhere. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Stop getting selfish players. And just last question before we finish the show: if they have the perfect transfer window, Elias, perfect transfer window, they make the as they fill all our wish list that we did. Do you think that they can still make that late season run that we saw in 2024?
No. To make the playoffs?
Yeah. Or
Outside
even maybe a
fine.
Leagues Cup run, or maybe a Leagues Cup run, because the Leagues Cup does start after the window opens, so it could be their opportunity to showcase the new signing.
You gotta be crazy. No,
Got my answer, I guess.
Realistically, no, I don't think so. I don't know when the next round after this is for the Canadian Championship. I do think it will help them in the Canadian Championship, especially if they get Canadian talent, because you need Canadian players on your roster and on your starting 11. But I do think it'll help them with their Canadian Championship run. I don't think it'll help with the Leagues Cup overall. And you know what? If they do get some good results and get some good vibes to end the season, they're not going to make the playoffs. But if they get at least some good vibes, right? Because remember, last season overall was not a good season. If you look at the entire body of work, the fact that they ended the season as one of the best teams in MLS and made the playoffs, the postmortem was like everyone was happy, everyone was like good vibes around, right? So you put together even a run of like a couple wins, and you have some good performances with the new players that you signed. The vibes are good. You missed the playoffs. Everyone knows that. But everyone's saying, okay, so there's something. And you're not going to sell these guys, right?
And
So
the
there's
coach
something
isn't going to get fired.
Now you're dreaming a bit too big. But there's something I can look forward to next year, right? Yeah. That's the best you can hope for outside of Canadian Championship. So that's what you have to take. You have to run with it. Maybe they'll end the year. Maybe they'll end the year, and I won't want to actively gouge my eyes out.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they will. I'm what is the expression they use? forever optimist, maybe. Maybe I live in La La Land.
Oh,
Andy.
Oh, Andy.
Right? Because I believe that, also with Herbers, Duke, Vrioni, Neal, all of them coming back from injury, there could be a potential there. But again, I might look back at this show and they were like, look at Andy. He's such a believer. What a guy, But I do think that they're trying to shape up their stuff and trying to make it seem like they're a decent functional club now. But we'll see. Guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We know we made it a little longer than usual, but we had a lot to say, Elias. We had a lot to say tonight about everything going on.
Yeah.
Thank you to everyone who joined us today. We hope you enjoyed tonight's show. As always, the podcast will always be free to listen and watch on all of our platforms. Make sure to check out our Patreon page for exclusive member content and all of our social media platforms for more content. Follow my account on X as well as Elias on Blue Sky. We're everywhere. Big shout out to all of you who joined the Patreon this week. And thank you again for all of you who tuned in tonight. And see you next week for episode 232 of The Ball is Round.